Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have 3 great stories for you. Let's start with the story where the OP had an accident, but he was still called to work. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Nearly died? Nearly fired. I was 18 and worked at a gas station. I was the type of employee that you could always rely on to cover someone else's shift. People would text me directly, and I would let the manager know when I showed up I was covering for so-and-so. I also owned a 50cc scooter to get to work, since it was nearby. One night, I'm riding my scooter, hit a pothole, and hit pavement. Immediate pain. My face jumps out at me first. It feels like half the road now lives on the left side of my face. I try to sit up, feeling various scrapes. Passerby calls an ambulance. EMTs think I somehow got a 3rd-degree burn on my chest when I try to pull down my shirt. I take it off, and they see all of my scraped skin into my bra. It's excruciating. I go to the hospital, mostly because my helmet was actually a bicycle helmet. I didn't know. It came with the scooter, and they're worried about a concussion. They have to keep me up until I get checked out by the doctor who isn't there yet. I realize around 1 a.m. that I'm not fit for work in the morning. Not wanting to wake up my bosses, I call the store and talk to the overnight employee. I tell them to tell the manager when they come in that I can't come in, and I will drop off a doctor's note when I can. Around 6 a.m., I'm allowed to go home, drugged up but concussion-free. When I get home, I think I might try to start unraveling. I go to the bathroom and strip. I'm covered in scrapes and bruises. I have a giant bandage taped over my chest that goes up to my collarbone. My face looks like somebody glued loose gravel with red glue, and it got close enough to cause a black eye. I say F it, throw on a comfy tank and some shorts, trying my best not to have fabric over anything uncomfortable. I've been awake 24 plus hours. I'll deal with the carnage after I sleep. 2 hours later, I wake up to my mom screaming. I come out and she thrusts the phone at me. My assistant manager is now screaming at me. She said I can't tell another employee I'm calling out. I should have called her. She said if I wasn't there in 15 minutes, I was fired. She had a spa day with her mom planned and was not canceling to cover my shift. I hang up and ask my mom, WTF? Apparently I didn't hear my phone and she'd answered, recognizing my assistant manager's name. She planned on explaining about my accident. When she answered, AM assumed it was me and immediately started yelling the same as above. My mom got heated, yelling, "She was in an accident! How dare you tell instead of asking if she was okay? She could be dead and you're yelling!" So I told my mom she wants me there in 15 minutes. What say you drive me up there? I grab my doctor's note and we're off. I walk into the building like crap on a stick. Despite having multiple pairs, I wear my broken glasses. Unintentionally, I realize as I walk down the length of the store, I've developed a limp due to my left side being effed. I didn't brush my hair. It's a wild mane that replaces my normally neat ponytail. Every minor abrasion on full display. The chest bandage clearly outlined in my tight tank. I see both manager and assistant as they see me. I lock eyes with the assistant and stare her down as I close the distance. My manager stutters out the question of, "What are you doing here?" I turn my attention to him. Assistant manager said if I wasn't here in 15 minutes, I was fired. I'm here, so do I still have my job? After he assured me that, of course I did, and to go home and rest, I gave him my doctor's note with the hand that's afraid from wrist to halfway down my pinky. I turned to assistant. I told the overnight person I'd bring in my doctor's note. Next time, though, I'll be sure to call you at 1 a.m. if I need to, right? Seeing the look exchanged between the two, what I knew had been confirmed. Her calling me was her doing, and my manager didn't know what was happening. I'm sorry about your spa day. If you'll excuse me, they didn't let me sleep until my x-rays came back. I'm exhausted. I left feeling as good as you can feel with a road rash. And our second story. Revenge on lazy colleague. Context. Going back a couple years, I used to work in a warehouse-type role in a fairly large company. For anonymity reasons, I'll stay quite vague. I joined a team that picked from different types of product we were making and created the customer orders ready for shipping. The team was under-resourced, but we worked hard and intelligently to get all the work done and go home on time. After I'd been there a year, a new guy joined, who we'll call Tony. One of the machine-related departments, you basically filled the machine up with raw product and kept the output clear. A couple of months after he joined, they started cross-training him on my team so he could support us on really busy days. Unfortunately, shortly after this, one of my team had to move to another section to cover a gap. Most of us were cross-trained throughout the warehouse, and Tony was therefore assigned to our section full-time. Tony loved the work because we did office hours and his other departments worked rotating early and evening shifts. I got to know him a little outside of work, and he seemed nice, albeit a bit of a liability on nights out. Once he joined my team, it was an absolute nightmare because Tony was really lazy. Once he got a handle on doing the job full-time, he cherry-picked. This is where you take the really easy-to-complete orders and leave the difficult ones. He'd also jump on a forklift and do the large orders, which didn't require anything special and meant you could just take as is in bulk packaging. This meant he had incredible numbers and would brag about how much work he did compared to the rest of us. He'd take the whole day doing the easy orders so his numbers looked above average, when honestly you could knock all those out in a couple of hours. The team started to struggle, and I got pretty annoyed. Because of his slacking, we were now having to stay 1 to 2 hours later every day. Not only this, but Tony would refuse to stay. He'd go on breaks early, come back late, and then leave as soon as he could. Technically, I could have left on time, but then my nice teammates would have had to stay even later. The OT was nice, but we were getting pressure from management to get all our work done during the workday. They couldn't understand why, with Wonder Boy on our team, we were doing worse. Also, these weren't small amounts of product. You needed to be pretty physically fit to be able to do the work, and doing it consistently for 10 hours a day got really difficult. From a personal standpoint, it also meant I missed my bus home and had to wait over an hour for the next one. Enough was enough. Revenge. At the end of the day, because of the value of the product, a foreman would do an inventory stock take. We also have to show how many orders we'd completed to feed into his figures. Once you completed an order, the process was to leave it on top of the box to be signed off before it was sealed and shipped. Whilst we were filling orders, I'd note the easy ones Tony was cherry-picking, then add extra product to them to throw our counts off. This did have collateral damage, and I felt bad making everyone stay late, but it was a short-term pain for long-term gain. After 2 days of this, a manager was assigned to assist us, and she quickly noticed that A, all the mistakes were Tony, B, whilst looking at his orders, she noticed the cherry-picking, and C, she saw how appalling his timekeeping was. Tony got swiftly moved back to his old department, but that wasn't the end of it. He still had a crappy attitude and continued to be a jerk. A couple months later, I was promoted into the office to a desk job, and he eventually moved back to my old section and started his old tricks again. As part of the new role, I downloaded the customer orders and produced the picking sheets to go out to the team. I tried to insulate the team by giving all the ad hoc, crappy orders to him to do so he couldn't cherry-pick, and warned the new team manager about his MO. Eventually, I moved up to the big city to take a better job that eventually led me to the career I have now. In my exit interview, my boss asked who I thought could replace me in the office. He mentioned he thought Tony might be a good fit. I concurred, but mentioned that I thought one of the old team would be better. It took Tony 5 years to get that job, and when he finally got a trial at it, they automated most of it and removed the position. And our last story. Fire me, then try not to pay unemployment? Nope. I had worked on and off again as a graphic designer with the same quick printing company starting in 1989. Sometimes I'd be a part-timer, other times I'd work a 40-hour week. Through the years, I knew that the owners were jerks, but I met some great people there and actually learned a lot. In 2005, I was working there full-time when I became pregnant with my second child. At about the time I was starting to show, I tried to get some time with the owners to talk about getting my hours reduced, but they were always too busy to talk. The owners asked me to visit a client at their site to talk to them about an upcoming project that I'd be designing for them. This was unusual, since quick printing companies usually operate on a walk-in basis, but I went anyway because the project sounded much more interesting than the business cards, forms, and letterheads I designed day in and day out. The meeting went well. During the meeting, I told the client that I wanted to wrap the project up in 2 weeks, since after that I would be dropping to part-time. He said fine, and I went back to the shop to let the owners know how the meeting went. I mentioned to them about telling the client that I wanted to go to part-time work and asked if we could talk about it soon. The owner said, "Okay, we'll talk tomorrow." The next day, I got into work and was settling in when I was asked to join the owners in the conference room. I went in, shut the door, and then all hell broke loose. They asked me how I could dare tell a client something like that. They accused me of trying to take the client for myself and not working through their print shop. They concluded by telling me that I couldn't be trusted and I was fired. I was not to turn on my computer. The only thing I was to do was to get my belongings and leave. So I went back to my desk and started boxing up my things. Petty revenge number 1. I had a bunch of plants in the window. Over the years, the constant watering had ruined the windowsill. Haha. Moving on, I decided to file for unemployment. I was told I'd have to meet with a case officer in an office that was about an hour away. No problem. I went in to meet with him. When I got there, I saw that the owners weren't there, which was strange. The case officer and I waited for a little while, then we had to start without them. So I was able to tell my side of the story about how a 16-year employee got unfairly fired based on a false accusation and how I hadn't been allowed to defend myself. He took notes the entire time. About a week later, I get a notice of another appointment. When I got there, I saw one of the owners in the waiting room and observed that she had lawyered up. The case officer called us into his office. He pulled out a file and started referring to his notes from the first appointment. "What first appointment?" barked the owner. "The one you missed," responded the case officer. He read aloud all of the things I had told him, then awarded me the unemployment compensation. Petty revenge number 2. I get the unemployment compensation. Owner needlessly spent money on a lawyer and wasted a day driving to and back from a faraway unemployment office. We parted ways, and I haven't been back since. Petty revenge number 3. After all this happened, the client contacted me. Turns out he liked me so much that he hired me to do the project with him after all. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.